Good afternoon. Welcome to the second instalment of Bordeaux Unpicked with Corning Barrow podcast, where we delve into the 2025 vintage. Hopefully you've enjoyed listening to our sort of summary of our trip and what we got up to and our thoughts on the vintage. But we're going to turn our attention solely to the wines of the Mitjavile family on this one. And I'm joined with the esteemed William Hargrove.
It's such sincerity, Joseph. Thank you for that. Yes. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Even when you hold him even higher esteem, Guy said, and
By right team.
thank you very much, Joseph. And our northern correspondent seconded to the south, Aaron Eccles.
Yeah, good to be here. Back from the north.
That's nice. And your first jump on the Bordeaux pod. Nice
Back in for the first time since Bordeaux Unpicked 2024. So back for a third season. It's always the best.
Award-winning season, yeah.
Well, that's when they make the money.
Well, I think this is quite a nice, easy one, isn't it? We all thoroughly love the people behind these wines, and we love the wines that they make. So I think it should be quite a fun, easy conversation to have. Guy, you've gone into detail on the vintage report. Is there anything sort of specific you'd like to add to Tertre Roteboeuf or Roc de Cambes or L'Orage with conversations with Louis and Francois? I mean,
So look, I mean, a lot of our customers know these wines well. We know them very well and love the wines. I think as an introduction to the way they make wine, it's very unique. There is really nobody out there making Bordeaux in the same way as this. They leave the grapes on the vine for a lot longer than anybody else. They pick at a time when most textbooks, I imagine, would tell you that you should already have picked by. Mm-hmm. Yet they retain this amazing energy and vivacity in the wines. How they do it, I don't quite understand, but there is this life and soul to the wines that is quite unlike anything else. Francois has a few buzzwords that you will always hear from him when he talks about a vintage or when he describes one of his wines. One is degraded. So he goes for this ultimate kind of degradation of tannin, by which he means the structure is almost kind of on the edge of becoming fondu, I think is the way he describes it in French. It's sort of just almost folding in on itself and has this lovely rounded sort of collapsed nature. And yet alongside that, you have pristine fruit.
yes.
You have this brightness and this real ultimate fruit expression. And that character runs through the three wines. So it's very much present in Tertre Roteboeuf, which incidentally is an amphitheater of vines. And so is Roc de Cambes. So I don't know if there's something there.
Yeah.
I don't know if this maybe attracted Francois to Roc de Cambes, which he purchased after having made Tertre Roteboeuf a name. And, the Roc de Cambes was bought in 1988, whereas Tertre Roteboeuf was inherited from Milut, Francois's wife's family. And he took over there in 1978. So, there's a similarity both stylistically and in how the vineyards look between those two wines. And then L'Orage carries on that family kind of resemblance and really does have this softness of fruit and this wonderful aromatic expression.
Yeah, I'll pick up that word because I was going to say the other sort of terminology that he likes to throw around is aromatic peak, where, for me, I love the energy and he goes up on his tiptoes every time he does it. And it's, as a personality, Francois is a real joy. And with aromatic peak, ultimately what that translates to is there is this high toned, gorgeous lift that you don't always associate with Bordeaux. Quite often find in Burgundy, and where you've got this lovely florality coming in with that concentration of red fruit. And then the other buzzword is rude tannins.
Oh, I was hoping you wouldn't remember that one.
Yeah,
Francois Bingo.
Yeah. And this is, again, he can talk for hours on either of these subjects and delve into more detail than you imagine could be possible. But with rude tannins is, again, talking about, as you say, that degradation. So leaving the fruit hanging, it sort of polymerizes the anthocyanins, the polyphenols, the tannins, effectively when they come into.
I'm getting very chemical here, Joe.
Oh yeah, sorry, it's the background.
It's the chemistry.
Yeah, but with how they farm, and then with a degree how they make the wines, which is minimal. reductive, protective, let it get on with its course of action. You are found with these textural tannins that are brilliant. But
Yeah.
the thing that, dumbfounds me every time is, how do you get so much freshness on the palate when somebody follows these philosophies?
With the late picking
And it's so
scenarios.
special.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the late picking.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I often, a guy puts it much better, but one way I would use to describe the kind of fruit he's after is Francois would like his bananas at the point at which they're almost black. He wants them to be perfect but soft. He wants everything to be not, he doesn't want some of the banana to taste nice. He wants to make sure it all does. So there's some of that. And also I think he's quite singular in that at none of the three estates do they make a second wine. They don't sell stuff off either to avoid doing that. So it's not a confected idea. They make what Francois always calls, and we might have to add it to the bingo card, Vin de Cru, so of the site. And also, which is very rare nowadays, they use one Cooper, Radu, across all three with a barrel. They've worked with them forever as far as I know. So in many ways, they fix a lot of the elements of what you could do by making a wine from the site that is everything from the site. I mean, within reason. They're not going to throw in grapes that aren't good enough, but they don't get rid of anything. They make through one Cooper, and they pick at one time, and they're almost all of them largely Merlot. Certainly, I think actually L'Orage is now 100% Merlot, but the last 3 or 4 till 3 vintages. Yeah. But the others are 85% Merlot. So you've got kind of one grape, one site, one Cooper. So some of the elements of Bordeaux, people say, well, why is it different from the rest of Bordeaux? Well, some of the reasoning is some of those things.
Yeah,
I think it has to be.
Well, I mean, go back to the person. I mean, you've met Francois a couple of times now, Aaron. We've been in his brilliant company more than probably a dozen times each on your left. What's your impressions of him as a?
Yeah, I mean, he's so poetic when he talks about wines, and I think sometimes he might hide behind sort of the poetry, but I think that there is quite a lot of a sort of real precision and real sort of workings that go on in his mind that he really works towards. He talks about sort of this degraded freshness and sort of the real precision ripeness, but also he's pretty bang on with the terroir that he's working with. He's working with clay limestone. He came from Figeac, which is clay limestone as well. And with these cool soils, he gets them to be able to sort of warm up throughout the season, and therefore he can have a longer growing season that builds this increasing texture, increasing through volume whilst retaining the acidity as well, which I think is fantastic. And as a person himself, listening to him talk is poetry in motion. You can sort of see how he sort of feels about the wine when he tastes it. You go to Tertre Roteboeuf and you taste directly from the barrel as you would in Burgundy, and therefore there is nowhere to hide. He is.
And he lets everyone. Normally Chairman Percy will choose the barrel, and then there's no quibbling and whatever.
Yeah.
There was a wonderful moment which I must recount this year when we arrived, when we were trying to. I think Francois had his last visit had left a bit late, and he was half hoping we were going to be late. So we turned up bang on 3:00 again. It's one of these extraordinary afternoons where we were on time, and Francois was trying to tell us off for being bang on time when he needed a bit of a sit down, and Percy was madly trying to apologise for the fact that he thought that he'd said we were late. So it was a wonderful sort of English, sort of Anglo-French moment of misinterpretation. But yeah, that's he's quite something, old Francois.
Should we talk a little bit about L'Orage as well? Because, the third string to the Mitjavile bow is this estate in Castillon-la Bataille, which is a little bit further to the southeast from Saint-Emilion.
That's seriously close to the border. I mean, I think actually one end of the vineyard does border the appellation.
So I think the boundary of the estate literally goes up to the Saint-Emilion border. So this is essentially Saint-Emilion in all but name. The whole 15 hectares are now, as of 2024, planted to Merlot, So again, Will, this goes back to your sort of unitary thing of, one grape variety, one cooper, one plot of land, and one wine. And really what Louis Mitjavile has done here is he's taken the family philosophy and he's applied it to the different terroir. It's the coolest in the Mitjavile setup. So, the nights really are fresh here, and you can see that in the zip and the acidity that he retains in his wines. And I'd say it's the most, futuristic is putting too much of a spin on it, but it's the most technological, I suppose, of the Mitjavile cellars, in the sense that he has temperature control throughout. He's able to micro oxygenate the wines if he needs to.
Yeah.
And it's really sort of very detailed winemaking. Lulu's background, as well as having owned and made the wine at L'Orage since 2007. He's also a consultant winemaker, both in Bordeaux and elsewhere in France to the south.
Yeah.
And so, he comes with a wealth of know-how and knowledge and experience in terms of making wine elsewhere. And he's a fascinating guy to talk to about whether it's winemaking or the state of the market or this very unique style of wine that the family makes.
But also, I think it's interesting to note that they and maybe it's a thing about the cooper and the way they make the wine, but the wines are so stable from the moment they're made that you can drink them almost straight off the bat. I've had 23 L'Orage recently and 21 both in the last couple of weeks, and they're both drinking brilliantly. Now, you can choose to decant them if you want, or you can choose to age them a little bit, but they do kind of hit the ground running. Well, L'Orage certainly does.
Yeah.
And I think that's it's a great thing. And they don't fall apart by any means, but they are ready for business.
No, and look, the common thread that started potentially with, that did start with his father's philosophy, runs through there as well. And I think Louis does embrace that. I think the big example we spoke about is the maceration times that he does with L'Orage as well. These wines undergo long maceration, and in 25 it was 6 weeks at L'Orage. And I think that is clearly a big proponent to how these wines, without any form of aggressive pressing, are getting that character, that fruit forward, that ripeness, that sweetness within the wines, but remaining decadent and not remaining overbearing.
If you weren't picking the fruit late at its perfect ripeness, you would be worried about astringency.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like leaving the tea bag in too long. It just would not. You would get stuff you don't want. Whereas they can do these long macerations because the fruit is totally ripe to the point of almost OGT.
But also, this has been sort of a thing that maybe in the past 10 years as wine merchants we've talked about, sort of that great salt and pepper seasoning of a Cabernet Franc, or sort of how fine the Cabernet Sauvignon is in a wine. This is great old vine Merlot, and these are the building blocks of fantastic wines. Some of the best wines in the world are made from old vine Merlot, and this has sort of some of the greatest vine material that you can have in Saint-Emilion, and that's what it's planted with, which just means that you have
very true. Yeah, it's very good
concentration, and therefore that's why you can have this degraded fruit. It builds, like as Guy always says in his notes, kaleidoscopic fruit, and you have this sort of really high tone perfume, and then also you get this lovely peppery note to finish, and all of the structure is why. Edouard Moix has talked about it quite a lot as well, that he really wants to have sort of Merlot on a pedestal again, and I think the Mitjaviles really do it as well, and none more so than L'Orage, where it's 100%.
It's fascinating. You're fun of Aaron. You won't have heard it yet because it's not even out. But you're picking up a point we discussed about Bordeaux generally, is that all the varieties have their place, and actually they're all doing well. It's not a matter of out with the Merlot and in with the Cabernet or vice versa. It's a good point.
Well, look, before we'll go on to the actual wines themselves, the 25, just to sort of see what we think with L'Orage and our thoughts. But I would probably like to put on, and it's a conversation I've been having more and more over the last couple of years. You've got these estates, these properties, domains that are part of a bigger, very reputed, famous region. But they're doing something different, which makes them stand out. And if I was to sort of throw names out, group ones that I feel fall within this, I think Mitjavile do this in Saint-Emilion, the way Soldera does this for Brunello, the way Conterno does it in Barolo, the way Chave does it in Hermitage, the way Reyes does it in Chateauneuf. where Kintarelli does it in and around Valpol. I think there is just something quite special, which is away from what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, it's a little bit apart.
Yeah, and if you're a fine wine lover, these are wines you've got to explore because they really are quite stunning. And I mentioned one producer there, which I can't help but naturally draw some parallels, and that's the wines of Reno, and of course different varietals, different flavor profiles. But in terms of the way structure is there, the way you've got that sort of incredibly beautifully sweet ripe fruit you've been talking about, insane aromatics and floralities and high touch.
There's a bit of a signature, is in a way.
Yeah, there is, but with that freshness, with that
impinging,
buoyancy, and then it's all tannin structures in, but then you've got that savory element that comes through. It's the same thing that people love about Reno's wines, but in San Similio and in different grape varieties.
Yeah. They really do stand out as well. I mean, I've been in blind tastings where you've got either Roc de Cambes or Tertre Roteboeuf in a flight of 12 wines, and people smile to themselves as they're tasting because they're just so easy to spot.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. They have a signature unlike any other.
As are Reno's wines and blind tasting, so easy to spot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sure.
And okay, look, some vintages are bigger than others. I'm not saying that you're going to get that from every single one, but there's wines that I loved serving blind, and Roc is probably number one on serving blind because it punches, and in certain vintages,
Good Lord, after
drinks.
15 years, you're finally sounding like Brett Smith.
Oh, right, I'm leaving now.
The transformation is complete.
Exactly, yeah. But no, because of the approachability and its personality, 3, 4, 5 years in,
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go. I'll kick off with L'Orage. I'm going to say it now. I think it's the best L'Orage I've had to date. I loved tasting it there. I thought
We also retasted 24 there, didn't we, as well? And that was very, very good.
Yeah, beautiful. The 25 is gourmand, expansive, plump, velvet texture, but with fresh and, again, which I mentioned on the previous pod, a charm. And I just thought, wow, Louis, this is your best yet.
Yeah, don't disagree with any of that. What I was quite amused by is that it's the earliest harvest ever at L'Orage, and it was picked from the 15th to the 18th of September. Which is on the early side, but sort of hardly historically early for most people. So it just shows the approach here. But no, I totally agree. I mean, the wine is beautiful, and well done, Lulu. Keep doing what you're doing.
Perfect. And also, if you got you love your wine, but you've got friends who sort of know a bit or appreciate good wine, it's a cracking thing to have in mags.
Totally
Brilliant thing to have in mags for entertaining. Oh, love that. And while you got the Roc and Tertre tucked under the table, your end.
Yep. When do you want to mention Roc then? And we'll come on to
Yeah, I mean, look, Roc de Cambes is a sort of perennial. I'm amazed we've got this far into a Mitjavile pod without you mentioning the 17 so far, Joseph. But anyway, I'm sure you'll come back to that. But I mean, look, Roc, it's not only because of the name, but it is a bit of a rock style wine. It just loves showing itself to people. That little bit of cab sauve that's in there, I think, does show a little bit, and it rivals Tertre on occasion. There's a little bit more full frontalness about it, but I think it's, I struggle not to find Roc exciting. So, does 25 stand out as the best Roc ever? Who knows? But I'll be buying it and drinking it, so no problem there.
If you do want to know what I mean by the sort of Reno similarities, the 17 Roc de Cambes, honestly, is the.
Well, here we go.
It's a beauty. The level of maturity that it's at now is just on point. It just sits below the fruit. That savouriness, that green.
It's gorgeous.
And of the three, it's probably the one that has the knack of soaring and the, in inverted commas, slightly weaker or off vintage.
Yes, totally.
I don't know how or why, but it does. It just sort of.
Yeah, like the 11, the 13. They're all brilliant, and they're trickier vintages. Yeah.
Tertre?
Yeah, it was pretty stunning when we tried. I mean, I wrote today that I thought it had the sort of that fruit composition of 18 and 22, and then that real freshness and drive of 19, which is pretty high.
Oh my God, the 19. Do you remember we had the 19 recently? My God, the 19's good.
Yeah, and I mean those vintages are going to go down as being hallowed wines for Bordeaux.
Absolutely.
And I just think that the sort of the lift that you got on the perfume, and then like this real structured fruit that came through, but the tannins were never sort of astringent or sort of too harsh in any way. And in across some 2025s there was a little bit of bite to the tannins. It's just not the case here. They're sort of beautiful.
I actually think also the and the degree less alcohol that we found across the board in Bordeaux really maybe played to Tertre's strength more than any other wine I can think of.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was a super super elegant, but elegant sort of makes it sound lightweight, which it really isn't. It's a sort of persistent elegance. I really thought Tertre was. I think you'll drink, to your point, I think you'll drink your Tertre 25 before you drink your Tertre 22.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be necessarily a crazy early drinker. But I just thought there was just nothing about it I would change.
It's very, very nicely judged. I mean, I think I put in the tasting note that it goes up to the edge of opulence, but it doesn't go any further. It's sort of lovely. It just judges it perfectly, and can't be easy to do that.
Well, on the off vintage, I'll finally add, for lunch today at Ham, we opened Tertre Roteboeuf 1992, and it was spectacular. And that is an off vintage. And we opened
I mean, that redefines off vintage.
92. I mean,
92,
only
very
bad
good.
things happen in 92.
Probably
Apart
only.
from if you're in Bordeaux.
But the only thing
If
that
you
you can
picked in November, you're
the only thing you can
absolutely
say
fine.
about 92 is it was probably better than 91, and that's about the only thing you can say.
So we opened it, gave it 20 minutes, and then it built, we didn't decant it, and it built in texture and intensity. The customer I was with is over, he's doing a sort of a London sort of week. And he had a Bordeaux night the other night, and he said this is the best Bordeaux he's had of his trip. And the other night was our restaurant, we love Noisy, where they did a horizontal 96, which include Margaux, Haut-Brion, Lascas, Gruard, etc. And he said, this is not it. This is my favourite that we've had the entirety of the trip. So he may have just been, trying to massage an allocation of a certain wine out of me. I don't know, but I like to take him. He's a very honest man and a very good taster. So
We get some more.
You have to describe someone as honest. It's always worrying.
brilliant. But we'll call it an end to that. I think you have probably picked up on our enthusiasm for these wines, but more importantly for this family and what they do in Bordeaux. So
Yeah.
we shall be back. So please, feel free to say cheerio. Bye, Aaron.
See you season 4.
Caesar.
Caesar.
Guy, would you like to actually? I've got nothing else to ask, but thank you for having me.
Yeah. Long live Mitjavile, and on to Moex next, I think. So yeah,
Thank you.
cracking stuff.